Hi, I'm Chaos Garner, and you're listening to the solonerdbirdpod podcast. Today, I'll be speaking with the writer and creator of the comic series The E.V.E. Insurrection, Jordan P. Jackson from JP Jackson Art LLC, now available to purchase on his website. Welcome, Jordan.
Hey, it's nice to see you again. How's everything?
All right. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Of
But
course.
outside my introduction, who is Jordan Jackson in his own words?
In his own words. Jordan is a artist, storyteller, comic book writer, animator, a lover of science fiction and Afrofuturism and fantasy. Mostly science fiction though. So yeah, I've been developing comic books for the past 4 years, since 2019. And my career kind of started out just I was doing mostly like animation work from like 2016, starting in 2016, doing animation work and freelancing. And then I started going to cons, conventions, and selling artwork. And I met a writer named Rob Van Blake who hired me to adapt his novels into graphic novels. And I had never done that before. So I was like, all right, let's just do it and figure it out. And it turned out really good. So from that point on, I've worked with other authors and writers developing their works. And then in 2021, I decided to publish my series, The Eve of Insurrection. And then in 2022, I released a second comic that's a spinoff called The Eve of Reclamation. So that's kind of how I got here with comics.
Yeah, somebody kind of just gave you your chance, and you're just like, "Oh, cool! Thank you for giving me a chance. Now, how am I actually gonna do this?"
Yeah, I was like, I've read comic books. I was like, I've read comic books. I made a zine when I was in my senior thesis for college. I went to Maryland Institute College of Art, studied animation there. And so yeah, I was like, I'll do this 4 minute animation and then I'll just do a little zine for another because I was an illustration minor. So I was like, I'll make a zine. So that was like my only experience with like sequential arts. And
Mhm.
then 3 years went by. And then I met Rod, and that's how he like I said, gave me a chance. I was like, all right, I'm gonna make this count. I'm not gonna embarrass myself. It's gonna be dope.
Yeah, it's kind of like how my whole artistic thing is. I went to school for graphic design,
Mhm.
but it didn't really work out because nobody really wanted to pay for any graphics. They just wanted to do like promo stuff in a way,
Mhm.
but even they didn't want to pay for those like $20 cheap things. And then I didn't do anything artistically for a while, at least visually. And then I started writing. And I feel like writing kind of just got me into a bunch of other different things
Mhm.
in a way. And yeah, a lot of it is just kind of being at the right place at the right time and
Yep.
um kind of like what's the saying? If you're always prepared, you don't have to get prepared or something. Like if you stay ready,
Yes.
you don't have to get ready. That's what it is.
Right.
So
Yes.
it's like you're doing all this stuff, and it's like, when am I supposed to do with all this knowledge and skills that I had? And then one day somebody comes along, gives you a chance, and you're just like, you accept it, and it's like, okay, what am I supposed to do next? You just kind of figure it out. You go to like YouTube University, pretty much.
Yeah, I used YouTube and different resources. I think I used Skillshare at one point to try to just like brush up on like lettering, just to learn different things about lettering when I was figuring that out prior to hiring someone to do that kind of work.
hmm hmm So let's get back into your project.
Mhm.
So, what is the Eve Insurrection about?
Okay, so the Eve of Insurrection is a science fiction cyberpunk series set in a world where corporations own everything like today, but they build these massive underground cities. And the main character, Lana Baker, this woman right here, is a philanthropist. And she comes from a wealthy Black family that has created their own utopia within this underground city. And so Lana does these legal nice things. He's giving away food, resources, technology to other communities by day. And then by night, she is the Shadow Queen, the leader of a criminal syndicate that steals from mega corporations and fights with police forces and gangs. And but in this 7 part series, you're looking at Lana's decision to start this insurrection, and because she's grown frustrated with the system. It's corporate driven, it's capitalistic. So she devises a plan that could change this entire city. but I can't tell you what or how she does it. It's one of those things like I can't spoil it, so it's just you got to find out when you read. So it's more of like for me, it's like this kind of a crime drama noir type story. That's kind of more specific with that. So
Uh-huh. So how many issues do you expect to create for the series?
so it's gonna be a total of 7. So like every issue is like a day leading up to this moment. It takes place over a week, and so I decided earlier this year that I was going to actually spend the next year writing out all of the issues. So that's how I'm planning this going forward. I decided for me it was kind of difficult, like being a writer and an artist and like trying to like switch on one side of my brain, so to speak, or different parts of my brain. So I decided that it would be better for me to just write because I'm starting to realize like I want to enjoy the process more. Just because the first time writing, it was kind of like I put a lot of like pressure on myself and a lot of like stress with time. And so I decided I was like, I really want to improve upon my writing because I know the art's going to be fine. Art's solid. People love the art. People love the colors. So I don't really need to work on that, but I really want to improve my writing skills. So I was like, all right, we're going to spend the next year writing out this whole entire series and just letting the characters dictate the story in a way and less on like me being this like omnipotent God. It's like, this is what's happening. The character has no control over it. So just trying to
Yeah,
be creative a little bit.
I
Have fun
tell
with it.
people, I tell people all the time that I don't write my characters. They kind of tell me what's happening
Mhm.
in the scene, and I just write it up. There was this meme that I saw that said, I don't write my characters. I just watch the dumb things they do, and then I write an incident report about it. And that's pretty much it. I
Oh,
was like,
that's
y'all just doing
good.
this
That's
really
really
dumb
good.
stuff, and then I just write it up. I was like, oh, so
Okay. Cool.
um,
That's a nice strategy. Yeah, I'm letting the character speak to me more, which is like really cool. And I'm like developing these intimate moments that like I didn't initially consider when I first like outlined the entire because I had like when I first started, I was like, all right, I'm gonna outline everything and this is gonna happen on every issue. And then that went out the window. I was just like, I know what kind of like major like story beats and plot points that has to stay in the story, but there's gonna be change. There needs to be changes. And so like I found some changes that I really enjoyed that that could keep the reader on their toes. So
uh-huh. Well, speaking of your process of writing it out,
mhm.
I guess can you just elaborate a little bit more on the process of creating Eve, the Eve insurrection as a whole? So where did the thought of this series come from? Like
Mhm.
it goes from a thought in your head to you working on it, like working on an outline and knowing these specific beats that you want throughout the at least this first issue for right now
Mhm.
to now promoting it that's now available on your website.
Gotcha. So I got to put out a disclaimer. So I've been telling people for the past year and a half that it took me a year to write this, and I like uncovered some documents. And the reality is that this project actually has been in the working since 2014. I just forgot subconscious. I don't know. My subconscious is weird. I like do so much stuff, and I'm like, this idea was in the back of my head since I was like a sophomore. I think I was either sophomore or junior in college, but I really wanted to tell this story that featured Black women in like a science fiction world and they were hackers. So that's where the idea started. And then like I got out of school, I got a regular job, and I kept coming back to this idea, like the cyberpunk thing. And I started designing characters, and I'm like, I want to do something with like a criminal syndicate and crime. And then 2 more years went by, and I decided to like actually commit to this story and like flush it out and like come up with a title for it, which was hard. Um, but it all really it started out with the positive. Yeah, really it started out with characters. Like I had been designing characters for a while, but in 2020, that's when I was deciding to actually write out the story. So I may have started with the story Bible for sure. That's how my brain works. So I thought about it like an animation. So I was like, let me figure out what the world is, what are the limitations on the world, and just build out this world. So I got nervous because I'm like, I could have so many gangs in this comic book. It's gonna be great. And I was like, no, Jordan, you're getting too you're I felt like I was suffering from the problem of like writing science fiction where like you have all these cool elements, but like you don't have like a real story or relatable characters.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, all right, Jordan, I do well with like numerical like numbers and limitations. So I was like, all right, we're gonna do this. Where I like the number seven. So I like number seven. So I was like, let me just work with the idea of the seven or six corporations. So in this series, I was like, all right, there's six corporations, major corporations. But then all these corporations could potentially use one or two gangs to operate for them. So I was like, all right, we're going to stop there. We're going to limit ourselves. We're going to just, and really think about like, I don't have to write out or show the audience every single thing in the world. It's not necessary. It's like, I'm telling this particular story. You can focus in the Eve of Insurrection. I'm realistically planning on only focusing on probably referencing or focusing on like probably five or six other gangs, but I don't have to like do deep dives and like show you every facet of it. So I was like, all right, I found a way to limit myself that was like, I'm not going to just spiral down into a rabbit hole. And so from there, I just started like really mapping out the story because I've always wanted to do a story about like a revolution. And this was also partly inspired by the insurrection that happened in the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the major forces. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I'm like, you have a bunch of like white people, Trump supporters that are like literally committing a crime, an actual crime. And it was kind of like irritating because like as Black people in America, there has been this like uh constant fight for equity, and we've been treated terribly for fighting for rights that we deserve as human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was kind of like, all right, well, I need to write a revolution story. I need to reference like the past. So like everybody's like, oh, Black Panther, and I'm like, Black Panther Party, and I'm like, I want to talk about that, and I
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about the context of just like how, in general, Black women have contributed to these movements, and so it's like highlighting that kind of lineage, and so those are different themes, elements that pop in the story. So I was like, all right, this is what the story is. All right, bam, we're fighting against corporations, and this woman is going to attempt to burn the city down. So I was like, all right, let's see how this is going to pan out.
Well, you pretty much do everything in the work with the exception
Mm-hmm.
of the cover art. So, do you prefer to work um on your stuff with limited input from others, or was the Eve Insurrection one of those projects that you felt more comfortable doing on your own?
So with the eve of with the eve of insurrection, I actually like I hired an editor, and that in a nutshell, that didn't go well. It was a lot of money spent, but there was just a lot of misalignment with like values and just like a working relationship. And so I had this person who was like giving me feedback, but at times it wasn't very constructive. So it was very hard to work with this person and then try to like meet a deadline I set for myself. And so I realized in that working process that I needed to like work with people that actually like align with my values and want to know me and like support the project and make sure it's like better. Um, and so after that, I got a new editor for my project, the Eve Reclamation, and I really enjoyed that process because there was a more collaborative working relationship where like I would submit a script and then the editor would actually go. My editor, Nikki Steele, she's been helping me kind of refine dialogue because that was something that I was lacking in. So she was like, well, how can you like provide me, like, can you give me like more background of these characters? Because so I can kind of help you write with their voices in mind. So she like really helped me a lot. She's a professional copywriter. She's like, yes, I write for people with the intent of using their voices. And I'm like, oh, that's amazing. So she helped me out a lot on my second project. And then I also hired a letterer on the eve of reclamation on that second project as well, which helped my process much easier because I was doing everything. It was stressful. It was stressful and tiring, exhausting. All of those words. And also because like I had, I had spent like $2,500 on this editor slash marketing person. And so like that was that on the first project on the eve of insurrection. So doing that was like, oh, okay, I'm tight with money. So it's like, all right, we're gonna have to do everything yourself. But now it's like after working with that person and going to the eve of reclamation and hiring a new editor and then being able to hire a letterer, I was like, oh, this is like way more cost effective. I saved so much money on my car insurance. But but so that like did like change the dynamic for real when I realized like, oh, okay, I could take $2,500 and do a lot more with it um towards like hiring more people to work for me. So right now I'm like planning like for the next couple issues, I really want to like hire some inkers and and the cover artist Ava Dennis, who did this cover. I would, we're going to be trying to I'm going to get her to do some inks for me for the upcoming project, just so to make the process much easier. But I'm always open to feedback and collaboration from other artists. Like it makes the job, it makes it fun. It makes the project more fun where like somebody walk into a space and like with respect, they give you something that is actually constructive, or that's something that they provide a different perspective. And that I feel like when you bring different people together, it becomes something greater than just me. Like it's not really about me at the end of the day, but it's about how can we plug in different writers and creators and tell this particular story in reference kind of real people's lives as well, and make a very interesting experience.
Yeah. What I've grown to like about working in entertainment or just as an artist in general is I actually do kind of like working with people. It's just a certain type or kind of people in the environment or
Yeah.
like the mood or like I hate to use the word vibe, but the vibe
It's a
that they set
vibe.
in a way like,
Yeah.
um if I feel safe, I feel comfortable to even express
Hmm.
what I want to happen or any type of input to give them or whatnot. Yeah, and like I kind of like talking to people and doing the cons and
Right.
initiating a conversation. It's more of what are we actually talking about in a way. What are we actually creating or doing? If we're just you know, waiting for time to pass, then I'm not interested in a way,
Hmm.
or if I don't feel comfortable, I'm not going to speak to you or whatever it may be.
Hmm.
So yeah, like I said, what I like about working in this business is the people, which on the other hand, the people can be the reason why you leave too. So
Yeah. If you and that's why I've been grateful because like the person I initially worked with like it was very just weird energy, very clicky, and those are things that we kind of suffer from like even within like the comic book community where like there are creators where I mean it feels it's very clicky, like you have you have people who are very close and revolve around orbit around the same spaces. And it's like, ugh, cool. All right. But you have to, all right, you're over there, but at the end of the day, you kind of have to build your own relationships. Like
mm,
that's what I learned. Like I learned to like this one relationship that I was trying to have with this other person. It wasn't meant to be, but I have to remember that like I have my own like circle of like writers and artists and people that have ultimately supported me and helped continue to push me to the next level and get me through things. So it's kind of like I've been privileged to have like a really good core group of people.
So throughout the Eve insurrection and other projects,
Mhm.
like I know you talked about how you used to do everything yourself and then you started reaching out to other people to help with certain aspects of your projects. But with the Eve Insurrection and other projects, did you or do you ever get overwhelmed? Does it ever become too much? And how do you typically manage your mental well-being when it does?
Um, when I worked on the E.V.E. Insurrection, I was going through a lot of anxiety, stress, um, and trauma overall. And it was one of those things where it's like, Jordan, you have to power through this experience, this not so great working relationship. You just got to keep moving through it, and because it's going to be over, and you have to take this information and reevaluate. And so, like working on the Eve of Insurrection, I took a good I just took some time to reassess everything and say like, all right, Jordan, your anxiety is going to affect the project. Your need to like stick to this deadline or like try to meet this deadline or goalpost that like is it particularly realistic is not helpful. Um, your customers, your fans are gonna can wait for you, and it's okay if it takes you a little longer to make something. But that's like something I've always kind of struggled with. Is like when I start working on something I'm committed, I kind of hold myself to these like at times ridiculous expectations. So I've had to readjust that. And so that has given me like walk coming into 2023. It has kind of it's changed my just perspective where I can be a little more relaxed. But now it's more so I'm more overwhelmed. I can get overwhelmed by the amount of projects that I'm doing. That's really what it is at the end of the day. Trying to juggle different things and making time for myself because like spiritually, like I can feel it now. Like I'm getting to a place where I work for so many people, and then I'm like a cat that's trapped in a corner, or it's like I can't get out, and it starts like freaking out, and I'm like I gotta do something for me. And so like I felt that energy like last year where it was like I had a lot of projects I needed to do, so I was kind of like, all right, let's get this done so I can like work on the stuff that is like going to that makes me really happy and that's gonna ultimately serve me in the future even more. Like I love storytelling. It's like I need to get back to it. It's
Yeah.
kind of thing I need to get back to it, but I've been trying to chill more. I'm most definitely chilling more about more chill and just like open to change and just leaving room for there to be just time so I can relax. So
Mhm. So, where did you feel the need to take on so many projects? Was it like a money thing, or was it just
yeah, oh yeah,
kind of
oh yeah.
scared to say no to it?
Oh, it was just, most definitely finances. Like,
Mhm.
because I'm like a full time like artist and business owner, it's kind of like I need to do this work, to pay bills. Like
Yeah.
I gotta pay bills. So it's kind of like I gotta take on a lot of projects. But over the past 2 years, I've learned like you have to. It's most definitely starting to turn into you work smarter, not harder. And so I'm starting to like realize like I need to take on certain jobs that are going to pay way more. Or I know I just need to say no to projects. At the end of the day, it's like if this project is either too time consuming or like doesn't pay a lot or would take too much time, then I'm just like, yeah, I probably shouldn't do this. Or
Mhm.
even like sometimes it's just intuitive, like I can tell when something's just not right, where something's just off about this project. Either the client's just a little off, so you have a weird client, um, or they're asking for too much, or not giving you enough clarity.
Mhm.
These things. So I've just started learning to say no to things and be like, hey, somebody else could do this, or this is not the time for me to do this project, and leave it at that, and just do what I already need to do. Do the projects that are already in the queue. As I call it, I just say the pipeline of the queue schedule. So it's kind of like I got to take care of that before I try to do anything else, and then also just constantly like making new content for my series.
Mhm.
So that's like the priority as well. It's like one of the major priorities.
So, do you have any other advice that you would offer to other creators you wish someone would have told you when you first started?
Oh, slow down, take your time. That literally that's that's it. I was like, it's not a race. And I think that there's another caveat to slow down and take your time. It does need to be perfect. Um, I that's something I haven't really struggled with because I think I had a lot of perfectionism when I was like in high school. Because I was like an oil painter and
Hmm.
I was like things have to be this way, but going through college, getting animation, and then doing comics, it kind of changed everything. And then reading more content, I realized that like this isn't perfect. It this story that was put out, whatever content I'm reading, it could have some artistic flaws or story flaws, but the independent artist, writer, creator made this thing and it's out there in the world. And that's really what matters at the end of the day because the issue one could kind of suck or be mid or whatever. It could be decent or it could have some flaws, but it could get better over time, visually and writing wise. So I was like, all right, there's no real reason for me to stress perfection. It's like I'm gonna put my best foot forward and then get people's feedback, customers' feedback, and then use that going forward to grow and make the content better. So
Yeah, I try to tell people, especially when they ask me about advice with writing, and I'm like, I can give you all the advice in the world, but if you're not going to start it, then there's really no point. I mean, I'll still tell them, but the first thing I tell them is that you have to start, really,
yeah, yeah.
And we were just having, just talking right before we started about my stuff and how my first book that I published in 2016, I first started writing it in 2014. Um, and I'm not the same writer in 2019 when I published my second book, and I'm definitely not going to be the same writer from when I finish the third one and final one, because there's not going to be no one after this
Oh.
in 2023, which is this year. So yeah, it's not going to be perfect and it's going to be flawed like crazy, especially your first project because
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
don't even
It's
know what
like
you're doing. So
don't be hard on yourself. Like I had like in my first book, I had flaws with like putting too much text and speech bubbles.
mhm.
Um, my panel layouts are a little funky. And I just said to myself like, all right, Jordan, like just like particularly last year, I got more feedback from professional industry artists. And they were like, "Yeah, work on your layouts and be more intentional with that." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then some artists like actually gave me like advice on drawing in one panel, like drawing an entire. I wouldn't say draw an entire image, but you basically draw within the panel and basically marquee tool, lasso tool, whatever, grab that information, shrink it down, and change the perspective. And then you could add more details or whatever. But I was like, whoa, that actually changed. That actually helped. Like that was a specific type of feedback that helped me. That was like a good visual. Like I can understand that. Versus people would tell me your your layout designs are very they're not intentional. That was one of the things. Like need to be more intentional with your designs and like how you lay out things. But that guy's advice, like the specifics, really helped me out a lot. I was like, cool, good. All
Yeah.
right. I'm gonna incorporate that into the next story, tighten that up a bit, and from an art perspective, and then slow down with the writing because pacing was a thing I heard. So I was like, all right, that's fine.
Hmm.
Slow it down and take my time. But it's interesting because my mental state and like what I was going through was like influencing the work. So
Hmm.
I was like, if I'm anxious, the writing's gonna feel anxious. If I'm chill, I can be more creative. I can let things play out and get into these moments and really have a good time with it. So
Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on about the Eve insurrection that we may have missed as a whole? Like, do you have any other upcoming projects this year that you wanted to maybe touch on or let the people know? Maybe some more conventions that you're doing?
yeah. So I gotta for the people who are gonna watch this, um, I am so in June. Let's say July. I was going to say June. In July, I would like to release a new project that takes place in this community. So this is called the Garden District. it's the utopian district in this underground city, and where you have plants growing everywhere. There's a lot of like, if you're from Baltimore, it's like if you took the what is it, the conservatory in Drew Hill Park, and then you took that and made it like an entire city. And so like creating these kind of like green spaces, and so but that's where the comic book is going to take place. But it's going to right now, uh, it's just going to be like a more kid friendly story that follows these like two black kids, a brother and a sister that are learning different concepts and different things related to STEAM, um, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. Those concepts, because I realized like I could get a little you know, your market's a little limited when you just have like violence, but at the same time, I really wanted to do something that is more educational because that's also where I'm going with my career. And so I want to like, and I want more black kids to see characters that look like them that are doing different things. Um, so I'm really looking forward to that. And next couple events, let's see, I have I have I have DreamCon in July, Awesome Con in June, and East Coast Black Age of Comics in Philadelphia in May.
Okay.
And those. I feel like there's something else hidden somewhere. There's another event that's gonna pop up somewhere.
Are you
Um,
going to are you going to Balticon?
oh, I keep getting requested to apply. I should do it. No, not this year. We'll probably do it next. I'll give it a go next year. Is
Uh-huh.
that's usually in May, right?
Yeah, it's Memorial Day weekend.
Okay. Yeah, we'll shoot for that next year, but we'll have everything kind of together. I'll probably even have a new Eve of Insurrection book. So no, we'll wait for that. But yeah, so I'm just like I said, I'm developing this new kid friendly story, and I'm excited. I'm excited about it. I got a really cool engineer help as a consultant. Really cool Nigerian guy. His name's Opie, and he's been helping me with like the tech. So it's like a very hard science, hard math, like real stuff in this little side series. So I'm really excited because I've always that's what I like about Star Trek. Like they use like real world science and like things that you could like if you wanted to, you can go look that up. And so I was like, I really want to do that with this educational series where you're not, it's not like Dora the Explorer where it's like, or Blue's Clues where we're like, we're going to learn how to do calculus, guys. Like, we're not doing all that. It's like, I want to tell a really cool story about these kids and like the things they create and problems they solve. And then, you know, put these elements like you'll see like actual like calculus equations in the background, like legit equations.
hmm
Um, or talking about like thermodynamics or fluid dynamics, different things. So I want you to be able to like hear these words or see these words and these concepts, and then like you as a kid, you have a decision now. Like you can go and do more research on this and like get interested in physics or like engineering or propulsion stuff like that.
Do you ever think about animating it, I guess, afterwards?
Really, you had to ask me that question. Um,
Oh.
Everyone wants to know if it's ever getting animated, and I'm just like, it's gonna take so much time.
I mean,
So
I just thought it'd be a good idea because, especially with children, you know, maybe you can connect. It's like maybe they don't know how to pronounce certain words,
yes.
so maybe you can link to like a YouTube video or something where it'll be you,
Hmm.
and it's similar to like similar words and whatever, or with the engineer, he's with
Hmm.
you and he's like, oh, this is how you pronounce this word. This is what it looks like physically in the real world or whatever, something like that. So maybe not an animation, but like a video or something that or like a QR code on the actual comic itself, and then they can link to it later or something like that, maybe.
So yes, I have considered the animation aspect of it.
Uh-huh.
So the goal is to like shop it around to like a production company. or any, that's what I would do. I could do a small test sample animation. That's no problem. But churning out episodes would be a lot of time. And well, for me to do all by myself would be a lot of time. It would take me a really long time.
Yeah.
And I would rather, like I said, I'd rather shop it around to a production studio, like shop it around to Netflix or Amazon or something, and have them, or like even like Nickelodeon or something, and have them like produce the content. I'm just a writer, because I also realize that's where like more of the power is like if I like me owning the intellectual property versus like doing the animation.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be in a space where like I have, I can be like, hey, this is the concept, the idea, and I can have creative input on what's happening, but let the animation companies do that kind of work for sure. But I really like I really liked how you kind of summed it up as like your idea of it as a like teaching tool of how to sound out certain words. Like that would be dope. Now that could be something that also could work from like a small like as like YouTube videos.
Mm-hmm.
That would actually work very well with animation. Like that's something way more manageable. But like doing like a whole pilot episode and like doing the type of storytelling that's what I'm envisioning. Yeah, we're gonna let the studios take care of that. I'm just a writer, y'all, an executive producer or whatever.
All right. Well, again, I want to thank the writer and creator of the comic series, The E.V.E. Insurrection, Jordan Jackson from JP Jackson Art LLC, for joining us here today. All of Jordan's socials and website will be listed in this episode's details for those who are interested in reading more about the E.V.E. Insurrection and the other work he's created and collaborated on. Again, I'm Kayla Garner, and you've been listening to the Solo Nerd Bird Podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.